Welcome to the Neo News Today podcast. I'm your host, Dylan of Neo News Today. In episode 53 of the NNT pod, I sat down and spoke with Vishnu Korde, the co-founder, CEO, and chief architect of StackOS. StackOS is an open protocol that allows individuals to collectively offer a decentralized cloud to deploy any full-stack application, DApp, and private net and mainnet nodes. In this episode, Vishnu and I talked about his background, StackOS's path from conception to today, the importance of advisors, how StackOS simplifies developers' lives, how StackOS will implement support for N3, the relationship with Neo Global Development, interoperability, and more. So I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation with Vishnu as much as I enjoyed having it. Hey guys, what's going on? Dylan with Neo News Today podcast. Today we are sitting with the CEO, co-founder, and chief architect of StackOS, Vishnu Korde. How are you doing today, Vishnu?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dylan, for having me here. It's amazing to talk with you and through you to the community of Neo. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Vishnu, it's really cool because StackOS has just recently kind of made the rounds on the Neo blockchain ecosystem. But before we get into what that is, I do want to provide just like an overview of who you are. And I think you have a pretty interesting background. You have an interesting patent on cryogenic engines, and you also have worked across various different industries and sectors here in the States. And you've kind of been, you were saying as we were speaking, you've worked in all 4 time zones. So can you just share a little bit about your background and what led you to working on behalf and for StackOS?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, right, I'm an engineer by background, and I have got patents in cryogenic engines, and which have been used in nuclear facilities. And so that extended to my really going from mechanical engineering to IT, because what had happened was when you have an application of like cryogenic engines, you just can't just go and build it. You need to simulate it. You need to do so much mathematics behind it, programming, which goes with it. So that got me a lot into IT and programming and stuff. And since we had this major product, right, I think it was a great fit for market as well. For that reasons, I'm trying to tame my entrepreneurial bug. Decided to come to US and finish my master's in management. So I got 2 masters, and one is in finance, which is from Harvard University. That's why I love Boston so much. Over the years, I have been in the IT field, moving applications from data centers to the cloud, trying to build really cloud native applications, and having the infrastructure built for that. And I think you briefly mentioned, and I have worked in 4 time zones in the US. I've worked in Denver, Colorado, where you're from, Dylan. Cool place. And then, of course, San Francisco, Madison, Wisconsin, and Boston, Massachusetts. It's been interesting here. For StackOS, we've been working for over 3 years. The new community would know Fabio. He has been advising us for a very, very long time. And he's been one of those guys who has helped even give a direction to StackOS where it is now. And I think he's just an amazing advisor to have for any team. I think people must look out for him if they really want to be guided by someone who's going to add value. Anyways, that apart. We were working on a learning management system, which was using cryptocurrency for offering micro scholarships. But we had positioned ourselves as, a decentralized learning management system. But the problem was our infrastructure was completely centralized, right? So to counter that, we were in the position that how do we really make the infrastructure decentralized, and we were working towards that. And then it just happened. Like Fabio was like, "Hey Vishnu, you have an amazing product. You may want to look for opportunities to make this your centerpiece of your of your product, and see right what happens." And as again Fabio advises, but that's us take the decision. So we went to the community to ask, get feedback about, hey, what do you think about infrastructure protocol, and would you think it's going to add value? And there was an overwhelming response, like, yes, that's what you should probably focus on. So while we have our learning management system, people can still use it. We started to, we rebranded from Integro to StackOS. And so our team is super experienced, obviously, in the blockchain space. We've been doing this for a while. Our core team is experts in the cloud space and creating infrastructure, and so I think it's just a generic blend of blockchain and our infrastructure backgrounds, which helps us to really add value to the entire crypto space of being the infrastructure protocol which is unstoppable.
Totally. So StackOS is an open protocol, and it allows individuals to collectively offer a decentralized cloud. So can you just share a little bit about what that process is like? Are users like me going to be able to share, spare space on my hard drive and receive rewards?
So yes, I think at some point that will be implemented. We are going to be starting with people being able to source compute from the cloud providers and data centers, and that will expand to people using selling getting their own hardware, sharing their own hardware. There are a lot of issues and security related concerns when people are using their own personal hardware, and that is something which we want to really stabilize before we start using that as the main product. So we are very sensitive to security because people will be deploying really important applications, and also that sometimes it's very unreliant using some hardwares of the local machines. You don't necessarily have the bandwidth as you need. The memory CPU could fluctuate widely because of the different processing requirements of the application and what the compute systems actually offer. So moving from there, but the focus is right now inside to source it from the cloud services and some data centers. But how we are uniquely positioned is that unlike many other projects, or the way they look at this thing is that they have these entities who own or run these cloud systems to actually contribute. How we differentiate, and I think we are positioned to be more community driven, is that anyone with an Amazon account or a GCP account can actually just click some buttons on our UI and automatically spin up infrastructure on the cloud and then integrated with StackOS's ecosystem. So it would be more like an organism, right? Trying to which actually builds on or uses compute from everyone else's and then makes it part of its own and grows that way. So and again, the benefits of all of these services and would be coming to the end user who's actually offering the compute system. So I think we are not really throttled or blocked by the limits of the compute, because every account user in the world can basically just go spin up a new new set of compute systems and integrate with StackOS.
So I've noticed on the website that StackOS is going to provide services for both decentralized applications and traditional applications. So is that kind of merger or marrying between the two realms the ability to offer a decentralized network as well as use the backend for these various centralized cloud providers?
Correct. So so the way StackOS is actually positioned is that it allows anyone in the industry, be in blockchain or traditional, deploy applications, right? And the focus has been centered towards how do you make deployments of applications on StackOS super simple, right? If you have taken a look at our demonstration video, you would know this has been user experience has been paramount. right? I mean, people should not be able to even tell this blockchain running behind it. So, and we have centered a lot of our UX implementation around that one. We are using MetaMask, for initial transactions to allocate resources to the developers. But in general, right, once that thing is done, it should be super super simple for any developer to start deploying applications quickly. And when we say decentralized applications, we like to position ourselves as Chainlink for compute. For that means that anyone who wants to claim to be uh, a blockchain based company trying to integrate data from the real world needs to use Chainlink as an authority, right? So Chainlink has established itself as an authority in that domain. The way StackOS would say that is usually all applications, all the blockchain companies, they basically have the smart contracts on these protocols, right? Like Ethereum, Neo. Um, but as this thing expands into you know um, you know the real application which are fronting that smart contract, they are always until now based out of these central services like Amazons and the Googles and stuff. So how we do is that we want to position ourselves as an authority that that application which fronts the smart contracts are deployed on StackOS. What that means is that if any of the nodes or accounts of any of the AWS node providers is suspended or stopped, the application migrates over to a newer environment without actually going down. So it is in fact unstoppable because you can't just bring down any account or a node and not have it replaced in a different region. So that's the power of StackOS, and I think that's where we stand.
And what markets are you going after?
So we are, again, it would be very foolish of me to say that we are targeting the entire world at the same time, right? It's strategically, it's a bad idea. But in fact, we do target all the markets, right? But our focus is on the go-to-market strategy, and the go-to-market strategy says that we first be focusing on, applications which are more traditional in the blockchain space because that's where the most active community of ours lives. Then followed by expanding into to organizations which are not in the blockchain space as well, right? So some of our partners, are very very tied up with some enterprises. You may have seen like a long list of VC firms actually invested in us. So they are committed to having us being more adopted by these larger enterprises. So the strategy wise, we are going to be looking for blockchain projects to partner with, and then committed to deploy on StackOS. And as you would see that we build the reputation of applications being really really stable on StackOS. We would want to expand that to more central services of these large players in the blockchain space, and then start to expand that thing to traditional applications as well. We do have NFTs, which are part of our applications, which can be treated as NFTs because it's running an application or creating an app is an art, right? And and those NFTs could be one of the centerpieces of how we expand our network into getting developers not just from the blockchain space but from outside the blockchain space to be able to sell their application, and then having this the mindset of how the resellers will sell the application, and the application developers can focus on developing, and when the NFTs are traded, the original authors of the application get incentivized for that. So that is a good blend of how we bring in NFTs and also be able to get communities not just in the blockchain space but from outside the blockchain space as well.
Yeah, and of course, today a lot of the images and the information in an NFT is stored on a centralized cloud provider, anyways. So it's not
Exactly.
even a truly distributed product at the moment. You did mention that you're collaborating and working with various blockchains. Now, StackOS was invested in and incubated by Neo Global Development. So could you just share a little bit about how that relationship formed with Neo Global Development and what that process has been like, and maybe how they've helped guide you from any pivots you might have had to where you're at today.
So great question, right? So as I said, Fabio has been there forever, as an advisor to us, and through him, Neo has been one of the closest ones with us. Um, but we originally, our team was focused on Ethereum because that's where the learning management system was actually built out of. So it was an easy transition for us to just focus on Ethereum. It also had the largest community, but Neo was something which was going to be centerpieces of knowing that it has a great community, great access to China, and also the developers who are really really mindful of how to apply these technologies. So um, the way so from the beginning, pretty much we were hosting the Neo nodes. This is really 2.5 years since then we've been hosting Neo nodes, but the one which we're running is Neo 2, right? um, so currently we are working with the Neo team to be able to create these Docker images for the N3. So I mean, that is kind of from a technical point of view how the implementation is working. And Neo has been, it's an Neo integrated project, and Neo has invested in StackOS to be able to incorporate us as one of their premium projects, which would be serving the decentralized cloud. Neo doesn't have anything on that portfolio, and StackOS is the only application in the portfolio which serves applications.
Interesting. So if maybe you could just maybe like explain like on 5 how StackOS will fit into like the Neo tech stack for building a decentralized application or maybe an NFT.
Great. Yeah. So I think what would happen is the current roadmap with the hackathon is that StackOS will be hosting the Neo N3's node, and will also be providing infrastructure for applications to be deployed on by the hackathon teams. So basically, they will have an app running on StackOS backed by the N3, on which they'll be writing smart contracts. And as we grow, the goal is to be able to support several of these Neo projects, and implementations. So we would be using or allowing any application deployed on StackOS to natively connect with NeoFS, and then it's a file store, right? So application running, they can run and they can store the data on file systems, um, like NeoFS, and then you would also have access or being able to log into the StackOS platform using the Neo ID, which will be pretty seamless. So and there are a lot of these technical plans which we have with Neo, and as we go, we would be implementing those in the ecosystem.
Is there a future where users from other blockchain networks are using StackOS? Because it sounds like interoperability is kind of
Yes.
a focus for the platform and the product. Is there a future where users from other blockchains maybe use NeoFS as a distributed storage provider just through a seamless integration in StackOS?
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the goals, right? So again, interoperability is going to be the key driving force in the future. It's not going to be the Ethereum only, or BSC only. I think there is a mix of for all, and and I think people are going to choose the best tech for the right stuff they need to do. So let's say if you want to store some files, you can't store that on Ethereum. It would be foolish to do that. For that reasons, they're using NeoFS, in my opinion. And I think StackOS is perfectly positioned to be able to enable that. And the reason behind that is because people can actually come to StackOS. We support Ethereum right now, and BSC, because they're both compatible with the ERC20 token contract one, but also because the smart contracts are pretty much the same. Um, and people can log in with the two different accounts, right? So that is the first phase of it, and and once the integration with the new FS starts, developers, while they're working and deploying applications which are backed, let's say, by Ethereum smart contract, they could use new FS to be able to store their data on and and operate that way. Um, which is pretty unique. Otherwise, you would have uh, it does become cumbersome to be able to enable that cross interoperability.
And it's not just, connecting applications and different platforms within various blockchains and ecosystems. There's a plan for interoperability for tokens as well. So could you share a little bit about how Stack will be able to interoperate on Neo and Neo will be able to interoperate on StackOS?
Excellent question, right? So right now we are interoperable, meaning that our token lives on two chains, the BSC chain as well as on Ethereum, and we use a fundamental product or project of Neo, which is the Poly network, um, and that is going to be the centerpiece of our move from one token to another. So making a token interoperable between different blockchains, and we are working on making our stack native stack token interoperable with the Neo blockchain using the Poly network bridge.
Very cool. So, what are some new partnerships that are in line for StackOS? What are you looking to do next with other developers, other entities, other blockchains? What can our listeners expect moving forward?
Every week we announce at least two partnerships. um, but I'm bound by we already have a pipeline of projects to announce. I'm bound by not able to take the names currently, but we recently announced a lot of these partnerships with like Neo is one of the big ones, right? But with others like Butterfly Protocol, we recently announced with Gather Network, and with Raise. So we are constantly announcing our partnerships, but the most of the projects revolve around that they using StackOS as infrastructure to deploy and run applications on, and that's pretty powerful because that shows you the adoption, right? We want to be the most adopted application for decentralized cloud in this place, and I think with all the partnerships and engagement we have seen, all of them are committed to run their applications here. All of our VC firms are committed to deploying their applications in StackOS as well, which is about 2022 partners already. So it's a big number, and I think we're pretty excited to just take the lead from there.
Very cool. And what's the status of the network? Is it on mainnet? Is it in beta? Are your partners able to start using it right now?
Great question. So now we did have our application in the testnet, and that was about. I mean, we are still in testnet, but we had made it publicly available about a month and a half back. And what happened is we had about 1,000 applications deployed within few hours, which was really big, and it was too expensive for us because we had to end up paying for the compute resources for everyone. So then we had to put that behind a form for them people to apply. So basically, we are in the phase where we are talking with people who are really having a compelling use case and sponsoring their projects. But they need to go through a form which we fill out, and if that engagement looks interesting, we initiate the conversations. But I think that's where we were at, where we are at right now. But our plan is to get to mainnet very soon. So we hope to be there in the next 2 months. We will be opening a partial mainnet already with the Neo Hackathon. And hopefully we get the right response and we get able to take that feedback to improve on the product.
Well, having too many users and having it be too expensive for you sounds like a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have indeed. So yeah, I mean we were excited, super excited. We were partnered with Chainlink. That actually brought us the hype, and also people actually coming on board to try out StackOS. So yeah, it's definitely a great problem to have. I don't think anyone in this industry has been able to accomplish those many deployments in such a short time frame.
Very cool. Well, a Neo adjacent project that has a relationship with Neo. So I look forward to following along with a lot of the great progress that you and your team have. And I want to thank you so much today, Vishnu, for taking the time to chat with the Neo News Today community.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dylan. It was a pleasure speaking with you and the community through you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Well, what did you think of that conversation? I thought it was super interesting to learn more about the process and the pivots StackOS has made over the course of the project. It was also interesting to learn more about how the team is working with the folks over at Neo to create Docker images for N3. And it was great to learn more about Vishnu's ideas for integrating the NeoFS distributed file storage system into StackOS, and what implications that could have for introducing NeoFS to users outside the Neo ecosystem. To keep up to date with the latest in the Neo ecosystem, visit www.neonewstoday.com. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and or Spotify. And leave a 5-star review if you feel that others should hear our content. Every subscription and review helps others learn more about the Neo News Today podcast and the Neo ecosystem. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Neo News Today podcast, and we look forward to catching you next time.